Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. The summer holidays are over and we're back. As you can see, the whole gang's here. It's our first day back at school again. I hope you and yours have had a good time. We've had 3 weeks off and it's been good. I don't know if you've missed as much. We'll soon find out. But well, there's lots for us to talk about, and we might as well get started right away. I mean, this week, the main topic has got to be the book. Now, should it, the famous book, frankly speaking, should it be in the fiction or non-fiction section, Lloyd? What do you think?
It should be very firmly in the fiction section from what I know of it. I do find it quite extraordinary that the former First Minister is making suggestions about things that didn't really happen and that the people who were there are still alive. But then again, she also says some rather crass things about people who are not here anymore. And that, I think, is their greatest crime by a long way.
Mm. Well, were you, Eva, were you impressed by the book and its launch?
Well, I haven't bought it. I don't intend to buy it. I don't intend to read it. And all you people that think that you'd been fly ordering it for me for my Christmas, better change your mind right this minute. To say that it's a work of fiction is incredibly and unbelievably and unnecessarily kind. This was a woman who was elected on the back of the phenomenal success of the Yes campaign and the efforts of Alex Salmond and of good people around him and good people around the whole country. And she's trashed or attempted to trash his reputation and his memory. And in so doing, all she's succeeded in establishing is that she was not fit for the job in the first place, and that the best thing that can happen to the people of Scotland and to the independence movement is if she does indeed, as threatened, up sticks, leave Scotland and relocate to London or to Timbuktu.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, these are an excerpts from the book I'd like to share with everybody, which I think sums up the woman completely and absolutely. A walking contradiction, she refers to herself as. Alongside shyness, a crippling lack of confidence, and a dreadful fear of failure was a burning ambition, a drive to succeed, a craving to be seen. I had, at risk of sounding daft, very strong sense of destiny, a feeling that whatever I did in my life would not be ordinary, that it would attract attention. Well, she's certainly done that. Big tip for herself. That classic narcissism, Phil.
Yeah, basically she's just admitted to being an attention seeker, and that's really all she is. She's achieved absolutely nothing. And and some of the appalling taste that she shows, she has no self-awareness whatsoever. We're looking about a woman who backstabbed her mentor, engineered his demise when the establishment couldn't. She did it from within. He wasn't taken down because he was fighting. And see, when the truth comes out, he'll be proven. Oh, he's already been acquitted in all the lies that were told against him. And the women who told those lies and the people who engineered that attack need to be brought to justice, and they should be brought to justice. And I, for one, will seek and fund that expedition if needs be. But some of the other poor forms, so like speaking ill of the dead, especially Alex, who was an innocent man in this game here, she disgusts me. And then she comes out, even the Queen, I'm not a big royalist, none of us are on this show, but he's gossiping to the Queen about the alleged sexual antics of Alex Salmond. How Michael Fagan-esque, you gimp. It's just absolutely appalling. Absolutely appalling. She disgusts. It annoys me that we're talking about her. She's a waste of space, and she betrayed us, and she sold the people of Scotland out for her show.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't discuss the conversation she had with Pope Francis, Nelson Mandela, and others that are dead that can't reply to anything she said. I mean, Alan, it was just the lie after lie, and she doesn't have to apologise to anybody. She's done nothing wrong. Everyone was right, except, you know, she was the only one that's ever right.
Yeah, I mean, on the Pope Francis issue, she couldn't have a conversation with him because it would go down as a confession and it would take far too long. She's got far too much to confess. But I mean, the Brothers Grimm had more facts in their books. The only thing that I really wish was that Frank locked the bloody door. Maybe it saved us all a lot of the problems that we're facing now. Because Sturgeon is a narcissist. She is just looking for attention and she doesn't care who she hurts in the meantime. And it's not just personalities that she's hurting. She's hurt this movement badly. For 10 years, she dragged this movement down, following her little queer ideology. I mean, we've had in literature, we've had The Lying King. We've had The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now we have the lying witch coming out of the closet. Because that's really what this book's all about. It's Nicola Sturgeon, how wonderful she was. Nicola, we were all there. We know how bad you were. You let down this movement. You let this movement down really badly. There's children living in poverty now because of you. And you say you didn't understand the attainment gap. Read your bloody documents. It's not hard. You've got officials there telling you every single day how bad it was. And you did nothing because you were chasing rabbits down a hole. You were trying to defend the British Empire, try to get them out of the troubles that they caused through Brexit and the rest of it, while our country was suffering. You should have got your priorities right. And maybe your book could have been called Nicola, Who Delivered Independence. But you didn't, because you weren't interested in independence. You're interested in your own ego. Well, it's come back to bite you on the bum now.
Absolutely. You know that phrase, Lloyd, you know, when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. And this is one of the things she said in the book, which I find really quite interesting, that she doesn't think the UK will exist in 20 years' time and we will be replaced by a new British Isles Confederation. Now, can you imagine some of your friends in the Basque Country or one of the other independence movements throughout the world talking about something about, you know, for example, Basque being part of a new Spanish federation negotiated?
It's utter and complete nonsense. And I would suggest, like many things that she's said over the past few years, she's heard this. It rings a bell for her. She knows it's the kind of thing that the chatterati of the political class, particularly the likes of Angus Robertson and indeed Kezia Dugdale and indeed Stephen Noon have been talking about for the past 18 months to 2 years. It's utter and complete drivel. But it does, again, as you very clearly said, Roddy, it exposes the intellectual desert that is Nicola Sturgeon's commitment to the independence movement. Anyone who has an understanding of what independence actually means could never come up with the concept that a federated, a refederated or confederated British Isles is even on the cards. The simple, straightforward fact is England is broke. Without Scotland, without Wales, England is entirely bankrupt. It's dependent entirely on the shifting and the buying of money. It makes nothing. It has little or no real export capacity whatsoever, and depends entirely on the natural resources of this country and the natural resources of Wales to maintain itself. No one in the right mind would even consider the idea of a confederated or federated British Isles. It's an insane idea. It's a completely stupid idea, and only one that could be brought about by academics or those who wish to maintain their jobs within the British political system. But the whole idea that someone who has been the leader of the Scottish National Party and indeed the First Minister of Scotland could even consider the idea that an end game for anyone who believes in independence would be a federation and a reforming of Great Britain it's beyond understanding. But what it does, I think, make very, very clear, it shows how shallow an intellect Nicola Sturgeon actually is. And I think, given what we know from the book and certainly from her interviews over the past few days, is that her focus is entirely and completely on her own vision of herself in the world, and the world as she sees it from her perspective only. No one, absolutely no one I know who has been a true believer in independence in any country that I have been in would ever consider the idea of allowing themselves to be subsumed again into another structure or organization, federation, confederation that denies the people their right to self-determination and the right to build, develop, and grow their country for future generations. That statement betrays a complete and utter lack of principle and a complete and utter lack of intellect. That's all it does.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things she said about another one she came out with, Eva, was the famous white paper, the big book we all got, Scotland's Future. She says, Alec never read it. She was tasked with doing it. A lot of people say it's exactly what cost us the referendum. Debatable. But the fact that, again, Alec's not here to defend himself. Having worked with Alec, you know how meticulous he was. Do you think for a minute he didn't read that?
Well, he didn't need to read it because it was indelibly imprinted on the inside of his skull. He knew the content of it. He could have written it verbatim himself without batting an eyelid. So I think it's irrelevant as to whether or not he read it. But what's important here is to distinguish between the styles of leadership but shown by Alex Salmond and by Nicola Sturgeon, because we knew before our involvement with Alba, but we saw it within Alba for sure firsthand, that Alec trusted people to do jobs that he gave them to do. He gave her a job to do, he delegated, and he didn't then stand on people's toes for no reason if he thought that they weren't doing the job properly. He trusted them to get it right. So she was trusted by him to get the job done and get it done the way it should be done. So it's shame on her that she thinks that there's any relevance or significance whatsoever in mentioning this. But you see, what her book confirms is that she was no leader. She was an egotist. And from the little that I've read in terms of the quotations from it, including those that you've just published there, Roddy, what's evident is Nicola Sturgeon doesn't like to talk about the impact that other people had on her or the impact she had upon other people or what her actual principles in life and in governance were. And I've been reading a really good book this week, which I think is head and shoulders above hers. And it's one that Lloyd gave me a while ago. There you go, by James Young. And in the opening pages, he refers to principles including human dignity, moral uprightness, and decency. And those are Scottish values. They're worldwide international values, but they're the values that we expected of the Scottish National Party and we expected to see in a First Minister whose job was to regain independence for our country. What we did not expect to see was her fighting tooth and nail and creating little gangs and cabals around her to do the same thing, to bring down and besmirch forever the reputation of one of the greatest political operators of modern Scotland. And that was what she seems to have dedicated herself to, not just in her last couple of years when she was in government, but more recently when she's been writing and publicising this book. And it's negative, it's divisive, and it is the last thing that either the people of Scotland or our independence movement need. What we need is a united movement where the smears and the allegations and the accusations are binned once and for all. But that's only going to happen when there's been a proper judicial investigation, either in the context of the action raised by Alec and to be continued by his widow Moira, or in a wider investigation of the conduct of all of those around Nicola Sturgeon who enabled Alec to be pursued, in essence, to his death. But to get back to the point about the white paper was just part of a much bigger picture in a Yes campaign that was motivated and operated and prioritised by hundreds of thousands of ordinary Scots, the grassroots Scottish people. And that is what is needed again. But this time, we need to be led by people who deserve the trust that was previously put in the likes of Nicola Sturgeon. We cannot be duped again by those who are self-serving, who take the money, take the silver dollar, take the English coin, and then turn tail when the kitchen gets too hot. We cannot afford that mistake once more. And that's why we need unity and people that are trusted and deserve to be trusted, not those that are in it for self-interest.
Correct. One of the other things that she brought in her book, Phil, was that she hinted that Alec himself had released the dossier, which was a Scottish government. How he got the dossier, we don't know, but that he released it to the Daily Record. And it was, as usual, nothing to do with her, no one she knew. And she implied that Alec did it to get attention for himself. Absolute bizarre.
It just goes on, and the white paper's a brilliant example. And I would go to, as ever, if you want the truth, go to Wings Over Scotland. You want lies, have a read it, Nicola's book. The list of lies, there's one article, particularly on the white paper, he admitted it. He absolutely admitted openly that he never read it. This isn't a revelation. You know, he said it in public several times. And, you know, this, I think it was about the 10-year anniversary of it at the IMAX in Glasgow, he mentioned it. And he trusted her to do the job, but he also knew, as Wings points out, the Reverend points out, almost nobody would actually bother reading. It's 700 incredibly dull pages. And I know that, as I've talked a few times, the military section of that white paper, well, one version of it, and a version very similar to what came out, was drafted in my dining room in Torfins with some military people that I knew, Angus Robertson, Luke Skipper, and a professor, a Clausewitzian military strategist professor. And there's a lot of people put a lot of effort into that document. And it turned out the wee blue book would have been a better answer. And Alec knew that. So, you know, and he did, as rightly said, as Eva rightly said, you knew it inside out. There's an article, 14th of August, The Envious Heart, on Wings Over Scotland. Read that and you will get point by point proof in the Reverend's brilliant style. He does his homework, he shows you the facts and proves that this woman is a barefaced liar. Brilliant.
Talking of those things, she turned around, Alan, and saying now in her tour of the English television studios, etc., how, you know, with hindsight, you know, if she'd been alerted, she would have paused GRR if she had known there was such resistance against it. How could she possibly not know? Well, the reason being that she wouldn't hear anyone speaking against it. She didn't allow evidence from anyone else. She didn't want to hear any objections, did she?
No, because she lived in her little bubble, as Nicola Sturgeon always does. She's like a Scottish Trump. She loves to be praised. She wants all her friends around her. She doesn't like any criticism at all, because if she hears the criticism, she may have to do something about it. But she was told from the day one that the GRR was a danger to women's rights. She called them bigots because they wouldn't fall in line with her. Now, she cannot claim not to have known how much damage this would have done, because professionals were telling them. Those who were not captured by the wokes, they were all being told time and time again, and every single time they were being told quite clearly, we don't care how they dress, if they put makeup on, what else they're doing. The line is safe spaces. Sex cannot change, and that has to be put into the legislation. She ignored that. So no, it's just yet another lie that she told. It's hindsight is a great thing, because if we had hindsight, she would never have been leader.
Yeah, true. I remember about 5 years ago, I said that she would do more damage to Scotland than Thatcher ever did, and I got absolutely attacked on social. Overnight, I lost 2,000 or 3,000 ex-Twitter followers as it was then. But you know what? I was right. Apologies will be accepted. But another one she came out with, Lloyd, and you might have been roundabout at the time, was she implied again that Alec was opposed to the Gay Marriage Act. and that he was going to oppose it. Whereas the truth, Alec Neil came out and said, actually, no, it was she walked away. It was too difficult for her. She didn't want to get involved in it. And it was actually Alec Neil who saw it over the line after Alec insisted in taking it away from the silly woman that couldn't do anything with it.
It's that's one of the ones that really annoyed me. There were, the simple fact of the matter is that Alec had made it plain when we went into the Parliament in 1999, when the debate was around the repeal of Section 28, that it was his firm belief that same-sex marriage was something that we should champion as a party. It was part of an approach to human rights that Alec held very dear. And I remember very clearly, now this is not on the issue of single marriage, this is the repeal of Section 28, which was the supposed promotion of homosexuality in schools. Nicola ran a mile from that because at the time she was courting primarily the South Asian community in Glasgow Southside, because that was the seat that she wanted to win at the 2003 election, because she'd been elected on the list as I was in 1999. So she would do nothing that she felt would upset the apple cart in the Muslim community particularly. So she ran from that. Further to that, when the decision was made, when the party became the government under Alec, that they were going to introduce same-sex marriage legislation to approve same-sex marriage, she still hadn't won her seat by that time. She was still courting the Muslim community in the south side of Glasgow, and she foolishly believed that if she was seen to be a champion of single-sex marriage, then that would damage her electoral chances. As so many things with this woman, it was about what was going to benefit her, and she picked and chose the particular issues that she believed would help her, and she ran a mile from those that she didn't. But the absurdity of this is she knows very well Alec Neil is alive and well and living in Ayrshire. He was never not going to say this is a lie. How she could possibly think that putting this in the book and making the suggestion, again, a vile and slanderous suggestion against Alex Salmond, but the fact that she failed to understand that anything that she said on this could be refuted by people who were alive and were there. Most especially Alec Neil, who carried that legislation, because as the only thing that was right that has been said about it was she got bored with it. She did get bored with it, but she got bored with it because she saw it as a threat to her own ambitions, and that was it. I mean, another one that is quite extraordinary. Her failure to understand the nature of the educational attainment gap, when in actual fact what it's actually called is the poverty educational attainment gap. The focus is that people are children who are failing to attain, and the gap between the rich and the poor, that without addressing the issues of poverty, then you're not going to be fully and properly address the issues of educational lack of attainment. That's quite straightforward. But another thing, drug deaths. 3 paragraphs in the entire book related to the fact that we have Europe's largest number of drug deaths and have done for nigh on 2 decades. Now, what kind of priorities did this person have when she was First Minister of this country? Actually, what Phil said earlier is I look forward to when we stop talking about this person, because the more and more we talk about her, angrier and angrier and angrier I get. It reminds me, I am reminded by every time I have to think about this person of my actual experiences with her over a 20-year period. I saw how she manipulated people. I saw how she abused and particularly the membership of the party over a long period of time, long before even she was a member of the Scottish, before the existence of the Scottish Parliament. But I'll stop there. But what can you say about someone who does not have the humanity to understand that in the week when she launched her book, that it was it was going to cause severe emotional damage to Alex Salmon's widow? How could she do that? It's, I mean, the chief mammy, chief jailer, I think would be a bit closer. That's enough.
I also think she chose the wrong title for it, Eva. I think the book should have not been called Frank. It should have been called Me, because the big revelation that none of us saw coming, did we? We didn't see this coming. She told us that her sexuality is not binary. And as if, as a matter of fact, and she'd mentioned it before, another lie, she hid this. It was the worst kept secret going, but it just shows the dishonesty that she'd never come out till long after.
I'm not interested in her sexuality, but it's interesting that she can't even get that terminology correct, because she doesn't mean that about binary or non-binary. She means whether or not she's heterosexual or bisexual. She just can't use the right words. But what really irritates me in terms of her ego is this issue where she referred to herself as the chief mammy. I found that really quite distressing and worrying at the time, because Nicola Sturgeon was aware way back in 2011 that there was a very difficult episode in social work in Clackmannanshire particularly, and that had led to an external review, which in turn led to some changes, and I'm pretty certain contributed to Nicola Sturgeon's eventual decision to set up the Promise, the care review. And what's really sad is she made a lot of promises then to people who were in care or had care experience, who knew just how bad some processes were, and she said that she was dedicating herself to make sure that these processes were revamped and that people in care or with care experience were treated with the dignity and the humanity that we all deserve. And here we are, very many years further down the line after the Promise was invented by her. The chief mammy has walked off the stage, and those innovations that she promised in the main have not in fact been implemented. The funding that's necessary for them has not always been made available, and the numbers, the figures, the outcomes, the experiences in the main for these children and young people of Scotland have not improved one iota, and in some places they've gone backwards. And the same position applies in all the other areas that we've touched on and that Lloyd particularly mentioned there, including the poverty-related attainment gap in education. You know, as Lloyd said, you only have to go on the Scottish Government website and you have a definition of the Scottish Attainment Challenge. The mission of the Scottish Attainment Challenge is to use education to improve outcomes for children and young people impacted by poverty. Well, little wonder that it's not working when the main chief architect of it doesn't even understand what it's supposed to be about and what the foundations of the Attainment Challenge actually comprise. Exactly the same process and criticisms relate to treatment of addictions. The drug death statistics continue to shame our country, and it's because Nicola Sturgeon thought that she knew best. She would not listen to people with lived experience and knowledge, and instead of having a government that was driven towards attaining independence so that we could address the ills of our country comprehensively, strategically, and once and for all time, instead of that, we're having to rely on charities nationwide that are urging rehab, that are trying to provide recovery facilities, that are fighting tooth and nail to help the most vulnerable in our society, whilst our government is spending an absolute fortune parking people on methadone and consigning people to the scrap heap because they are too pig-headed to listen to the folk that know what they're talking about. Lay the blame for that entirely at Sturgeon's door. That's what she should be talking about. That's what she should have written about. And it's what every damn journalist worth their salt should be interrogating her on. Give me 5 minutes with her in a witness box and then we'll see exactly what her priorities are and what she really did think about the people of Scotland that hoped and deserved far better.
Yeah, well said, Eva. But while that book, this work of fiction, was going round the rounds, the National Library of Scotland, Phil, were banning the Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht book, because I was sure some of the snowflakes got themselves a wee bit upset because of it. But before you answer that about this, how the National Library can ban a book now, what would next come burning? I want you. This is the CEO of Amina Shah of the National Library speaking previously.
We really need that more than ever. And that goes back to what you were saying, James, about Andrew Carnegie, about democracy. Because at the end of the day, there is no ability for democracy to happen if you don't have information for all, empowerment, education. And I'm starting to think, because I'm involved in national library networks in Europe, and also IFLA, you were there, Sean, for libraries across the world. We're hearing that libraries are being targeted, for censorship.
Yeah.
When every child has a phone in their pocket, somehow suddenly books that are on a shelf are a threat. That's interesting. And they're also being targeted for funding at a time when we need democracy more than ever.
And yet, she went and banned the book, Phil. Is it hypocrisy on steroids?
Yeah, absolutely. Sadly, the world's full of people who don't have the courage to stand up for what is right, and she's just another one of these carpetbaggers. And you get into a position of power, you get a wee bit of TV time. Oh, you were on the telly. It's like, aye, is that right? And it's like, and that's the tragedy. We're bringing up children and complete generations whose objective is to get 15 minutes of fame, not to be a doctor, not to be a teacher, not to study, not to do law, not to advance society, but to advance their own profile on Snapchat or some idiot platform like that. And you can't help but see it when you notice it, when you're involved in it, because it's how the heads are turned. The lies in that book and the lies that other people continue to this day, that needs to be addressed. I won't name the two local MPs I know, MPs I know, SNP MPs I know from my time. One was newer, but one was there when I was there, and I met them in Brussels. And when I spoke to them about this, about the truth about this, what happened to Nicola, what good would that do? We don't want that. We don't need that. That's the last thing the party needs. It's exactly what the party needs. We need to clear out these shysters, these excuses for vertebrates. As Homo sapiens, we're supposed to have spines and backbones. None of these people do. They'll do exactly what Nicola did when she refused to stand up for gay rights, and because she had a large Asian and Pakistani community in the south side who would be against her if she did that. But Alex did the right thing, and of course she told a lie about it, and it's a blatant lie, as you pointed out with Alec Neil coming out and telling the truth about it. This is so ill-judged, and these people that follow Nicola, and that librarian is just another damn example. Your people that are empowered, even during COVID, any of these shows that Nicola put on for her own benefit, all were, in retrospect, even at the time we knew, to the detriment of the betterment of the people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing she has achieved that has been positive. A couple of minor things that were finished off because Alex had started putting them in place. The golden keys that were handed to her were sold. And the reason why this story needs to be told and why Alec needs fully vindicated, and bear in mind, he was charged with 14 charges. 1 was dropped, 12 not guilty, 1 was not proven. And the weasel words that were used in the press when that was reported out in Nicola's book implied that not proven means something other than not guilty. It's one and the same thing in Scots law. And I know That can be corrected by Eve if I'm slightly wrong there. But the other thing was, he said a man who's dead who cannot answer her, he was guilty of one of these. Oh, I might have done so. That was a misunderstanding. What a horrible, nasty piece of dog shit that woman is. Absolute low-life scum. And that she needs to be shown for what she is. And all of these fawning over her and all of these who were part of this stitch-up, who lacked the spine, who lacked the spine to stand up for what was right. That's who we need now. We don't need jellyfish. We don't, and geez, I suppose there's hope for some of these idiots, because the jellyfish has been around for about, 5 million years and doesn't have a brain. So there's hope for these clowns, you know. You can still survive. It just shows you, politicians and jellyfish, you can survive without using their brain or having a brain. We need people with brains and spines to stand up for what's right. And everyone who took part in that lie, that stitch up, that setup, that fabrication needs to be outed and shown for what they are. You're not fit to be any part of any leadership of any people who face a future that they want to take hold of and make for their children. To hell with them all.
Yes, yeah. We started off this part, Alan, by saying, not going to buy it, not going to read it, taking the excerpts, etc. We're all saying it, but I support her right to write that book. I support the right of other people to be able to read that book. That should be available in every shop, every online. But this banning a book because you don't like it, like the same as we're not allowed to watch Russian television, we're not allowed to do this, that, and the next thing. That's the worst thing to do. Banning of books, what's the next step?
I mean, ban the books. You know who ban books, don't you? The fascists. They don't want you to see the other side of any story, or they don't want you to hear the truth. Now, banning is never a good thing, except, however, sometimes it works in favour of the people who write the book, because when you ban something, it creates a lot of interest. So it may actually backfire on them, and people will be going out and buying, and I hope they do, go out and buy the Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht book to find out exactly what was happening and see where the lies are within Sturgeon's comic book. But I mean, history has shown us time and time again that we must never, ever have censorship on literature. That is part of our culture. So by banning things, you are attacking the culture of a country. We are entitled to read. Our children are entitled to read. And they must know the facts or the other opinions of other people. It's the only way they'll learn how to think for themselves. Because it's bad enough at schools just now where they're being told what to think instead of how to think. If we start taking that outside of school and restricting what the educational facilities they have available to them, that's a dangerous road to go down. That is really, really dangerous, and we cannot afford our nation to go down that road.
But by the same token, Alan, people are entitled to, we should also be entitled not to read. It should be there. You, the individual, should have the choice. That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, the choice is there. I mean, it's like when you're watching the TV, they tell you can't watch this channel, you can't watch that channel. Well, I'm big enough to press a button on my remote control to change that channel.
Yeah, exactly.
If I do not like it. I mean, it's one reason I do not watch BBC, because I do not like it. Still have to pay for the bloody thing through a license, even though if I don't watch it. But that is my choice. My choice that I don't have is paying for it. But no, you cannot censor things out. If you do that, you are not allowing people to think freely themselves. And the one thing about the human race is we are, or we should be, free thinkers. Unfortunately, with the Sturgeon lot, that shows that they are not free thinkers because they've been caught hook, line and sinker. But even going back to early on here where it was said that she was talking about Britain going to be breaking up in the next 20 years. Come here, Nicola, I've got a secret for you. Have you done your job properly? We would have broke up 10 years ago and we would have been an independent nation now. But you kept us chained to this union.
Yeah, she did indeed. I mean, the classic example of any book that you ban that gets a boost, Satanic Verses. When it was banned, Salman Rushdie became more famous if they'd kept stum about it. But there you go. Other things have been happening. Even when we were on our holidays, having a nice wee couple of weeks, Lloyd, feet up, getting a suntan. This happened. 43 SNP branches challenged John Swinney's, how do you do inverted commas, independence strategy. And it met with short shift.
Yeah, it did indeed. But just before I go on to that, I think there's something really, really important about the book, The Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht. It's factual. It's the story of what happened with the introduction of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill. It's contemporary history of our country, contemporary political history, and the effect that the introduction of that legislation had on the lives and careers of a huge number of people in this country. That book is banning history. You know, the removal of it from the National Library is effectively saying the past 10 years of Scottish political history did not happen. That's the absurdity behind that. But I can see how also John Swinney's decision not to accept the proposals of the 43 rebel or so-called rebel branches of the SNP, who in my mind are not rebels in any way whatsoever. All they are people who are concerned about the direction of the party and wish to put the party back onto the path that it should have been on, which is the path towards independence, and that they believe that focus has been lost. The idea that John can dismiss the fears and the concerns of 43 branches of members of the 43 branches of members of his own party, reject it out of hand, shows the complete lack of democracy that there is in the SNP. Now, we've been talking about this for a long while now, but this really confirms it. Have the debate, John. Don't simply reject the suggestions that are coming from these people and say that they will not be on the agenda for your conference. That's not the Scottish National Party I joined. It's not the Scottish National Party that will deliver independence. A Scottish National Party that does not listen to its own membership, the people who, from their own volition, give their time, their effort, their money, their intellectual power to the organisation because they believe in its core value, the core value being the achievement of national independence. You cannot simply ignore those people. You cannot reject them and make them and put them in a box somewhere unless you're in the business of corrupting and collapsing the party. And maybe the clue to what's going on in the higher echelons of the SNP is Nicola Sturgeon's statement that the UK will not exist in 20 years, that there will be a reforming and a confederation or a federation of these British Isles. Is she expressing the thinking of the current First Minister? Is this where John Swinney is now? It would appear to be that, because if you're not prepared to have any internal debate around the central core issue that the party was founded upon, which is the achievement of national independence, then that gives the impression to many of us, an impression we've had for a number of years, that we're now moving very firmly onto the ground of devolution and maximum devolution within the United Kingdom, and that alone, which would be exactly what has happened to the Nationalist Party in the Basque Country, to the Nationalist Party in Catalonia, which has decided to accept the circumstances that they're in and try and get the maximum out of it. But at least in the Basque Country, the Basque National Party, the equivalent to the Scottish National Party, is honest in its statements and does not pretend to the people that it's achieving something else. I mean, the hypocrisy of the leader of the Scottish National Party effectively telling members of his own party that their desires are no longer the desires of the party leadership. That, to me, is absolutely astounding. But then again, you know, John's got a great sense of humour. He sent out a great tweet this week congratulating the people of India on their 80 years of independence from the United Kingdom. Now, for the leader of the SNP to congratulate India on its independence while attempting, at no level whatsoever, attempting to achieve the same thing, I think is hypocrisy, total hypocrisy.
Just a bit, talking of hypocrisy, they won't be discussing independence either. However, but not to worry, they're going to have, thanks to Stu Campbell again for digging this one out, the conference will still address the important issues, e.g. the Supreme Court's decision on the Equality Act of 2010. The party they're going to debate that, but they're not going to debate independence. Am I missing something?
Not at all. This is just the continued hijacking of the agenda. This is why we've got Liberate Scotland. It's why we've got a campaign that says independence, nothing less, because that is the one matter that should unite the entire independence movement. And let's remind ourselves of what this movement used to comprise, what it was founded to comprise, and who founded it and why. Because George Reid died during the week, and that led to tributes to him, mention of all the different things that he did to make Scotland a better place, and of his contribution internationally, including in relation to Live Aid and Band Aid. Now, he was unfortunately the last surviving member of the SNP 11 that went to Westminster in 1974. And you look at the photo of those 11 people, I posted it on social media as a reminder. Those Scotland's First 11, they were called, and obviously included not just George, but several others, too many to mention, but notably Winnie Ewing, Maggie Bain or Maggie Ewing, Neil McCormick, people that you would never in a million years have doubted the extent of their dedication to Scotland, to Scottish independence, to the cause. They would not have wasted their time allowing a piece of nonsense like this onto the agenda, because all that nonsense does is prolong two things. One, division in the campaign, and two, a falsehood. And the falsehood is that somehow trans people are losing rights. No, they are not. Trans people remain protected. They have rights. And what has happened as the result of this debate is that trans people have become vilified unnecessarily at times because of the perception in the public eye, which has arisen as the result of certain misguided people insisting that you can change your sex. You cannot change your sex. We have spent far too long talking about this. It should be a non-event. We should be saying to trans people, you've got rights in terms of the Equality Act, in terms of gender reassignment, and you should not be discriminated against. What we ought not to be doing is continually getting bogged down in arguments when the Supreme Court has settled it once and for all. Way back in 2021, Izzy from Fife organised an event in Falkland and then another one in Cooper, and then there was another one in Alloa, where women, described as gender critical women, I would suggest women who knew the law and no fact, spoke about police guidance, transgender guidance in schools and related matters. If the government had paid attention then, some of the promises that were made by Sturgeon might have been delivered, because the gender ideology debate would have been quite properly sidelined. We wouldn't have had the Sandy Peggy Tribunal. We could have said that forget the Brexit, stop Brexit on the side of a bus, and instead have the Constitutional Convention that was promised in 2020 that we're still waiting for. We could have forgotten the sideshow of the Supreme Court application by Sturgeon that she accepts was always doomed to fail. Remember, no ifs, no buts, referendum day, put the date in your diary, 19 October 2023. All of that stuff could have been bypassed if in 2021 there had been a concerted effort to deliver independence, nothing less. That is what we need in 2026, so that in future, arguments about gender ideology are not hitched onto and divide an independence campaign. Because the longer this goes on, the more it looks like the people in the higher echelons of the SNP want to prolong the division, because it keeps some of those bums on seats, and it actively prevents progress in independence. That division has got to stop, and stop today.
Indeed. You know, one of the things he's saying why he's not listening to the 43, Phil, is because of this. He is saying, John Swinney that is, Westminster won't ignore the demands for a second independence referendum if the SNP win a majority again in Holyrood. That is what they're saying, that they will cave in to the electorate and will give us a Section 30. Is the SNP leadership the only people in the whole of the planet that think that Westminster will ever again grant a Section 30?
Yes, they are. Quite clearly.
Oh no, they're saying it, but do they actually believe it, do you think?
No, they're saying it, but they know it's not true. I mean, they're not stupid. They're just noses in the troughs. This is a combination of two things. The Nicola Sturgeon's claim that the UK won't exist in 20 years and will be replaced by a new British Isles Confederation. These are devolutionists. These are unionists. John Swinney, Nicola, Angus Robertson, all of this crew. They'll quite happily sit there with their noses, snouts in the troughs for 20 years. She just told us. It's like, even though she lies a lot, she's also admitting who she is here. She's a devolutionist. She's done nothing to further the cause of independence. In fact, she's done a great deal to damage it for her own benefit. And the reality is that they'd quite happily sit there and do nothing while the people of Scotland suffer and while things continually get worse until Britain implodes, which is going to do eventually. But we need to get out before it blows up. Mission impossible? I don't think so. We're going to sort that one out. The other part of this, the 43 rebel branches know this. They brushed aside this mandate. They said one more mandate will definitely win this time. What utter rubbish! These SNP and it's absolutely right what Lloyd says here. These are not rebels. These are altruists. These are people who hold the core value of SNP, independence, nothing less, to their heart and say, enough's enough. We went along with the party loyalty for long enough, but now it is patently obvious. Well, we could have told you that 5 years ago, and hands up those who saw it before me, that the SNP leadership after Nicola took over had no intention of taking us to independence. So it's absolute garbage. They know that unification, that's what they're asking for. The 43 rebels know it's unification. We, the independentistas, know it's unification is what we need. The Yes movement proved it. And it's what Alex Salmond genuinely believed. Remember, he said, and I'm paraphrasing somewhat here, if folding the SNP was a requisite to achieve independence for Scotland, then he would not hesitate to do so. He's putting the cause before the party, as he always did, unlike all of these shysters. John Swinney, you're a shyster, a liar, get out, leave Scotland, along with Nicola and Angus Robertson and all these other wastrels. They're no better than Daniel Defoe.
Don't disagree there. But this is the thing, they live in a wee bubble, Alan, because Swinney comes out and says this, that it's essential requirement to ensure that Scotland becomes independent. I'm not interested in just arguing about independence. I want to deliver independence, but I'm not allowed a debate about it at our conference, but I really want independence. These are contradictory statements, Alan.
What's everybody worried about? John said it. If he gets a majority, he's putting on his battle dress, he's painting his face blue, and he's marching to number 10 to doff his cap and say, please, sir, can we have another referendum because of democracy? And he'll be asking a man who's sitting in number 10 with less than a third of the vote. Do you really believe that they are interested in democracy? Come on, get a grip of yourself. I mean, I'm really surprised at John, though, because I thought he was a wee bit more savvy. I thought he'd have used the oldest SNP trick of letting it go through conference, because elected members under the constitution of the SNP are not bound by conference decisions. They are, in fact, empowered to make policy as a group, because they are the ones who are having to move the policies in the parliaments. A lot of people don't realise that. So John could have allowed this to go through, but I'm glad that the SNP are now being more honest by saying that they are not really interested in independence, because what they are planning is using the majority of an SNP vote to negotiate more powers for the devolved Westminster Parliament in Holyrood. That's all it's about, to get a little bit more money. But the facts are, we can only make the differences that is required in Scotland by holding the purse strings of Scotland. We can make many, many promises, but unless we control the macroeconomics of Scotland, we will never, ever be able to change a damn bloody thing. I mean, we already have the stage where They're taking our data. They're taking our power. They're taking our water. Well, in 2026, through Liberate Scotland, you now have the chance to take back Scotland. And that is the decisions you have to make. We've told you plenty of times on this show before, more than half the Yes movement are refusing to vote for the SNP. If we can get them out in 2026, Liberate Scotland will not just gain seats, they will be a major player within that parliament. And we have the backbone and the commitment to push through the independence.
Because we've got to, the clock's kicking on here a wee bit, Lloyd. There's a couple of things I really want to cover this week before we go. And one of them is it's twofold. Loch Long, the announcement came out, and it was hidden, of course, that it was radioactive waste from a nuclear weapons is spilled into the loch. And we also had a warning that it's going into the sea at Faslane as well. Again, hidden. England's desire to be on the Security Council because they've got nuclear weapons is put ahead of the Scottish interest of killing us with bloody cancer from nuclear waste.
This is a really, really, really crucial situation. The fact is that for 19 years, there's been little or no maintenance carried out between on the infrastructure or the infrastructure at Coolport and the infrastructure at Faslane. And as a result of that, we discovered that for probably during those 19 years, that radiated water and radiated liquids of many different types have leaked into the loch. Now, this happened when the Americans had the base at Dunoon. There was a lot of radioactive pollution into the loch then as well. Now, this happens because the maintenance of both the infrastructure and of the submarines, and this has been shown by the inquiry by the Defence Committee even at Westminster, that they have not maintained the nuclear fleet to the level that it should have been. They've been covering it up. They've not been providing the necessary finance. And the serious problem here is that there is the potential for an accident, which the damage of which we should not even be contemplating. The danger to Glasgow, the danger to the whole of the Scottish Central Belt, if there were to be a major radiation leakage from one of the submarines is a horrific concept to cover. When I stood in the Dumbarton seat, which Helensburgh and the Faslane base are in 1999, and I made inquiries about what provision was there in the event of a leak of radiation or an accident on the base, only to discover that unlike at Devonport, there was no provision in the primary schools for I think it's called potassium hydroxide, which you give to children if there's a radiation leak. It mitigates against the radiation poisoning. Also, I discovered that there was only one radiation bed at the Vale of Leaden Hospital. And that was maintained only because they expected there to be possibly a leakage within one of the submarines, and the sailor would be taken to Vale Leaden Hospital. That has been taken away. There is no provision whatsoever anywhere near the base at Faslane to deal with a radioactive incident. There is none whatsoever. Whereas at Devonport there is. Their hospitals are geared up to deal with radioactive pollution. The primary schools and their schools within the area in Devonport all have nuclear alarms, so that if there is an accident within the naval base at Devonport, the children the warning goes out. Now, we know from the inquiry by the Defence Committee of the Westminster Parliament that the submarine fleet is on the point of breaking down. It is so badly maintained. It is so old that never mind getting to the point of whether or not it can fire its missiles, because there's deep doubt about that possibility as well. The fact is that they are being, I think there was a Royal Navy officer described, who refused to be named, but described the maintenance on the current fleet of nuclear boats was being held together by brown paper and sealing wax. And that we were lucky that there hadn't as yet been a major disaster, and that they seriously expect that sometime one of the boats that's out there in the sea will just disappear because they are so badly maintained. We as a country, we as a people, should not be the base for weapons, number one, but secondly, nuclear-powered submarines, which are way, way beyond their sell-by date. We will be the victims of the accidents that will happen. And anything, as we know very well, anything that involves human beings, the likelihood is there will be an accident. I really do fear for this country. And it's up to our government to demand that safety precautions at the Faslane base and at the Coolport base are up to the standard that are required to protect our people.
Here. But it's not just the West Coast. We know, for example, at Reside, there's the rotting subs, the old Polaris subs. They're leaking shit every day into the East Coast. And it's just another burden. I go back to it. This is so that the English can feel that the big world power they are, wanting to go to war with Russia and China and sitting at the Security Council. But we're paying the price, and it's Scottish landscape and people who are in danger.
Exactly. They're Billy Big Boss. We've been colonised, and we perhaps are too stupid to realise it and do something about it. And for those who might be sceptical, just Google, why isn't Trident stored at Plymouth or on the Thames? And you'll get an answer that says, due to safety concerns and the potential impact of an accident on the densely populated cities nearby. So this is similar to a couple of 100 years ago when it was the Scottish troops that were put in the front line because it was no great mischief if they fell. Well, it remains no great mischief if the people of Scotland fall. And it is yet another nail in the coffin of the Union. And it should be, and it will be, if we have the United Campaign for Independence next year, because in its absence, people of Scotland will become ill, our landscape will be blighted for centuries, and the only reason that is happening is because the people of Scotland allow it to.
Yeah. There's two other topics I want to quickly cover, and we're running out of time. And one of them is, I've got to admit, personal. I was in the telecommunications, data communications industry all my life. I was one of the pioneers for data centers and web hosting, and you need big data centers for it. And one of the things that was strange about it was that because you outsource all your equipment to a data center, you don't get to work in it every day, and IT managers and directors were very skeptical of doing it. So they built all these, they started building them in London. And now we're hearing this week, and I'll tell you why it's wrong, they're going to expand 94, 93 of them are going to be in and around the southeast of England, down in the bottom part of the UK. And it's the worst place you could have them, for the simple reason, Phil, that real estate down there is the most expensive. These data centres could be in Orkney or Shetland or in Carmarthen, where they need massive amounts of electricity and they need massive amounts of water. You could put them near there, but they give high-tech jobs, they create a lot of jobs, but you don't need to be in London or the southeast of England because you're paying more for the ground, you're paying more all the time. This is, again, colonialism. The good jobs and the high-tech jobs are going down there, while where are they going to get their water from? From Wales. Where are they going to get their electricity from to run them? From Scotland. It's a colonial absolute certainty.
Yeah, guaranteed. That's exactly what it is, Roddy. And what people perhaps don't understand about these data centres, you mentioned it, the amount of water for cooling that's required, the amount of power that's required. When you use AI, okay, when you're using artificial intelligence, as I've spent quite a chunk of money on this project that I'm on, you actually book chunks of the power of knowledge of capacity for these data centers, and the massive servers and data banks that they've got in these data centers, highly complex buildings, and you can pay depending on the power that you require to manage the documents, to generate the narrative you want, or whatever data service you're getting, it can be really expensive and very, very profitable. There's a huge amount of profit in this. It's getting, they're popping up all over the world where a government understands where the future is going. Ireland's building them, London's building them, Scotland. Nah, they're not interested. You're right, it's colonialism.
No,
It's again putting all the centres all where they want them, all where the votes matter, all where the points are scored, and we lose out again. Yeah, you're right, Roddy. It's colonialism.
Yep. One of the other things about London is, if you know, you've got the boom on the Thames because they're expecting flooding, and you can see it with global warming. It's going to be flooded. They're going to be taken out. That's why you want to be up in the Highlands. That's why you want to be up in Wales, away from it all. But no, the jobs, the money.
Well, the thing is, it's Frankie Boyle said, we know this is coming, and this is why I don't recycle, because bring on that global warming, because we can be swinging for the coconut trees, throwing pineapples at the English as they drown. Come on, let's have some of that.
Oh, yeah, that's us in trouble again. And the last thing, I'd like you all to have a quick go at this. Now, I'm quite controversial, but Tony Blair's come out with, again, he wants to see digital IDs. He's used to get tough on populism, but he wants to see it. See, I don't have a problem with ID cards whatsoever. I mean, I've got it here in Spain. I have 2 cards. I need one for my health, an ID card. And, you have to give your fingerprint in a picture. And you can't get certain services. You can't get anything unless you get this card. You can't vote if you don't appear with your ID card. Lloyd, I don't see it as a problem. I know it's a controversial subject, and a lot of people don't agree with it because we're British and we don't need ID cards. That's for the fascist regimes. I see it as a practical measure for a lot of the problems in the UK.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. ID cards have been used across Europe and across large parts of the world for a very long time. What this is about, what Blair's talking about, is something entirely different. If you move into the world of ID based on facial recognition and so on, then a bad government comes into power, and they don't particularly like now they don't like your particular views, and they want to sweep you off the street. The easiest way to do it is by using facial recognition. There's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for it whatsoever. The other thing that concerns me about it deeply is the facial recognition CCTV that we already have here in Scotland, in Glasgow in particular, is actually the same systems that were developed by the Israelis for command and control of the Palestinian people of the West Bank. Now, anything that comes, as far as I'm concerned, anything that comes from a security state like Israel is something that we do not really require. And knowing Blair's connection to the Israelis, and knowing the Israelis' ability to access other people's data right across the world, I do not want my child to have a digital ID that can be accessed by the murdering thugs of the Israeli Defense Forces.
Controversial, as I said, Eve. Are you for or against digital IDs?
I agree completely with what Lloyd has said, but I also think we should take a step back and look at some of the practical issues that currently face a lot of people in the UK, but especially in Scotland. And it's to do with, if you're skint, you've got no income and you try to apply for benefit, you've got to apply online. And you cannot apply online unless you've got a telephone number that you can insert into your application. So I have personal knowledge of somebody who was destitute, living from food banks, not able to pay their rent, threatened with eviction, went to Citizens Advice and said, what can I do? I'm stuck on this application because I can't get beyond the page that wants my phone number, and there's no facility online to say, I don't have a phone number. Can you take me on to the next page of the application? And the answer, which worked, was just put 11 zeros in the boxes and that'll take you on to the next page. But it took a fortnight for that explanation to be given to this claimant. So we've forgotten where we came from. We're getting all excited about digital revolutions and websites and internet access, and we still can't deal with the basics of enabling somebody who's destitute to actually make an application, because we've decided to digitalise it all and stick it all on the internet, and we've forgotten the power of communication face to face and what you can do with a pen and a bit of bloody paper.
And how about you, Phil? You for or against digital ID?
Yeah, Lloyd nailed it. I think it makes sense if it's used properly, but it will be abused, and certainly in this British government, it's definitely going to be abused, especially who they're associated with. We should not forget that the Brits very much, MI6, CIA, Mossad are very much in control of the great game that continues. The continuation of the great game when the empires of Britain and Russia were up against each other. And they will use that information to prosecute and persecute anyone who stands out from the crowd, which is us. Independentistas, watch out. If you give it to the Brits, they'll use it against you. That's the only fear I have, and it's true.
What about you, Alan? Are you for or against digital ID?
Totally against it. I don't see the reason for digital ID. Let's get rid of some of the bureaucracy. It's stopping people from accessing services. And the reason that I'm really opposed to it is because I do not trust those who are in charge, the civil service or the politicians. I mean, these people should remember, they are the employees. We are the employer. So why do we keep having to prove ourselves to them as employees? And I'm terrified that they have access to information which they could possibly change to put anything onto the digital ID, to criminalise anyone, to remove funds from their bank accounts, to change medical records. It's a very dangerous road to go down. Anything that's online can be changed. And it doesn't matter how much security you have on things. There's always a hacker a little bit ahead of you.
Excellent for that. Well, folks, at that, we'll call it a day. I hope you've enjoyed our first show back after the summer recess. I hope you found it entertaining and informative. And it'd be nice to hear from you guys what you think about these digital IDs. It's a good conversation. But until we see you, may you and yours take care of yourselves. Cheers.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.